Welcome, everybody. I'm Brent Thurgood with Enerflo. I'm the head of people here and just really excited for this panel with this group. So, this is the Behind the Panels expert installers share their stories and tips. This is a panel we're looking forward to. We're excited to have Mark Bench, who is the co-founder and CEO of TriSmart Solar, and he's also president of the Residential Storage Association, also known as RSA. Hunter Potalivo, oh gosh, Hunter, I messed up the name. Potalivo is the managing partner at Sun Venus Solar. And we have Steve Welsh, who's the CEO at Standard Energy Solutions. And moderating today is Nicole Rowe, owner of Sunrow Solutions. So with that, Nicole, we'll hand you the reins.
All right, awesome. Thank you everybody for joining. So we're going to start with a few questions. So the first one is, what are you doing to diversify your business, especially after this year, as we've seen a lot of different companies go under? Steve, we'll start with you.
Great, thank you. Diversification has been something that's been really important to us since really being in the industry. At first, we really focused just on the service and taking care of warranty and extended service issues. But as the electrification of the industry has occurred, we've started focusing on more electrical services. So not just EV charging and battery storage and load control panels that come with renewable energy, but also looking at just basic electrical services, more home improvement type electrical services, and O&M and stranded system services for the industry and the consumers.
Oh, great. And then Hunter, I know that you've taken a different approach with this as well.
Yeah, for us, what we looked at is what type of solar company survives 5 years from now, 8 years from now. What we landed on was single entity risk or single product risk is a very relevant thing that could be a risk in our future. We went out and we decided to own our own roofing company. So we're a licensed roofing contractor. We're a licensed HVAC contractor. We're a licensed building contractor now, and we're in the process of getting our plumbing license. So when we said, okay, we can reduce risk and have multiple different revenue streams to where if we were to say worst case scenario, lose the tax credit or lose net metering, solar only makes up say 50% of the revenue, where if you were 90% solar, you might have difficulty not only surviving but thriving in that kind of apocalyptic scenario if it were ever to come down. And then on the flip side of that, adding value to the authorized contractors when they go and sell the products. What if you could go to your dealers and your reps and your energy consultants and say, instead of monetizing just one product of solar, what if you could monetize and make a commission on 6 different products under one umbrella with no subcontractors? So we saw that as being a double benefit, and we went for it. And now we're enjoying the fruits of those labors.
Awesome. Mark?
Yeah, from a diversification risk perspective, fortunately and unfortunately, we have developed strong relationships with multiple lenders. Financing is a critical point in our industry. So having the optionality and strategically aligning with both a TPO provider and a loan provider that works well in your region is extremely important, and understanding what's required to get paid. Traditionally, up until this year, 90% of our deals were loans. And we've seen a market shift given the economy that we're dealing with, that people are more in tune with PPAs than they have been for many years. So taking on that process and doing the lift to ensure that we accommodate that structure is important. And then additionally, diversification is an interesting topic because one thing that we focus on is becoming a regional, really just dominating the region that we're in. And so we've been very resistant to expand beyond Texas. So we have opened additional warehouses in Texas. So we consider that diversification. And then as always, we're always looking for new sales channels that are using different technologies to educate and promote solar. Having a door knocking model is great. It works well. And there's also other ways that sales dealers and originators are originating accounts. And so we're looking at supporting them and helping them diversify our portfolio in kind. So we're always looking to develop new relationships on the sales side, which also helps. And then being a collaborator, right? You got to collaborate in the industry, learn quickly, learn from other people's mistakes, also help other people avoid mistakes, because some people will take a right turn. And if you can help them avoid that, it will benefit your business. So that's another way to diversify risk, is support your competitors as much as you can, so that when they attempt to take a right turn that isn't great for them or the industry, you not only protect them, but you protect your market and your industry as well. So I could go on and on about that, but I'll be quiet now.
No, and I think that's perfect. Especially yesterday, I was the moderator on the sales panel where we had some of the nation's largest sales orgs. And one of the key things that I took away from that panel was they want to be involved more with their installers. They want that communication and they want to have that understanding between the why things are being done that way. So I think that really ties into all of your responses. Now, diving into this as well, what are you doing to really combat poor sales practices? We've seen permit poaching increasing, unethical sales. What do you do to protect your company and kind of hedge that risk? Steve, if you want to start.
Sure. We've always felt like we had the responsibility of delivering the consumer experience and the customer experience. And we took it very carefully and really embraced making sure that they're getting what they expect and they know exactly what they're entering into. Now, technology and the recent 18 to 24 months has driven more exposure into that. So transparency is really critical right now in our industry. We need to make sure before we do anything with a residential or any type of a customer that there's communication. Everybody's fully aware of what they've entered into, what the expectations are, timing, delivery, financing, whatever's involved. And unfortunately, with the current environment, we as solar companies need to protect ourselves. So we need to make sure that we're using technology to the best of our ability and to what's available to record, not just record from a video standpoint, but record from a records keeping standpoint exactly what that experience is, and everybody understands on both sides of this agreement what they need to do, who's accountable, and ultimately the bottom line. We believe we're responsible as installers. I like to think that we're the gatekeepers of the consumer experience, and we need to make sure we're delivering exactly what their expectations are, but we need to know it and we need to communicate it, and we need to be very transparent about it.
Yes. What have you found the best way that you've been documenting that right now?
With current technology and the advancement of AI and all of these other types of video recording, we've definitely embraced that as a go forward approach. Historically, we probably weren't as strong as we needed to be about making sure that everybody knew exactly what was happening. We trusted the sales representatives to be forward and upfront and be selling with integrity, and that's not always the case. We've learned over the years in this industry. So we've gotten more involved. We've become much more controlling of how projects get into our queue and what we accept, and making sure that not just us, but our financing partners are staying ahead of exactly what that experience is and what's being committed to by the consumer. One last thing I'll say about that, Nicole, is we do take it very seriously. If we find that someone really has been misled, even if we've already done a project and we've been called back, we'll make sure that they're taken care of, because it's what the industry needs. We have to take care of these consumers who've been damaged by bad actors.
No, completely agree. Hunter.
Yeah, twofold. So we look at it from the installer side, right? It's what we found is we need to control the utility bill. So extrapolating that consumption data off that utility bill, we use an AI model and a human to create that design. So there's no ambiguity when it comes from, hey, I thought that was 1600 kilowatt hours when it was really, say, 1900, to make sure that when we go to build that system, that baseline data that we're building that system on is hyper accurate. That's one of the things we've done recently that's really helped us change and control that perfect customer experience, is what we call it. And then on the opposite side, making sure there's a lot of design tools out there. We still have humans create our designs for design accuracy. That's one of the large aspects for us, is that we're looking at recent LiDAR models and making sure that we're getting those shady models completely correct. So that's protecting the customer experience on the sales rep side. And then on the opposite side, making sure that we have what's best for the energy consultant that's out there doing all of that work, or the sales dealer. On the installer side, we've heard some that have said, yeah, I just got this surprise MPU, or I was surprised with this other $800 fee. On the installer side, holding ourselves accountable, that says, hey, if we don't put something in writing to you, that this is on your project or on your job, and for whatever reason, if we forget or we miss to do it, that we're going to eat it, and we put that guarantee in writing. So there's no surprise costs at the other end of that project completion. I think that's it's really important to say, hey, let's make sure we protect the company, protect the homeowner, but then also the individuals and teams that are doing the work, making sure we're protecting them as well. So it's a double accountability standard.
No, I love that. It's definitely important to cover all those bases there. Mark.
Yeah, I think we're talking about permit poaching, consumer protection, sales experience, all of it. I think, but certainly investing into the experience from the get-go, in some cases for installers is painful, but having a dedicated support line for customers and for sales teams to reach out to, they're both your customer and they both need to be treated accordingly. And then they also both need to remain in communication with one another. So we facilitate that and continually remain in communication. There's also, as Steve mentioned, there's technology available today where people can do digital virtual welcome calls. Those are very important now, especially in the landscape that we're in. They're not just to protect the consumer. They're also meant to protect the utility. They're meant to protect the sales rep in that house, and they're meant to protect the installer and the financier. So certainly installers that are adopting those practices are looking into the future and ensuring that they're doing what's right for the industry. So the biggest thing, and I think the hardest thing for contractors right now, is consistently doing what you say you're going to do on time and the way that it's meant to be done. It's construction. So when you don't do that, it's really important that you get in communication and you clean it up and you own it. And I think as long as you're doing that frequently and consistently with your sales teams, your customers, your financiers, and your own employees, and you're putting new structures in place to support those things from not happening again, you'd be in good shape. That's it.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And that was the exact sentiment yesterday too on the sales panel on wanting that clear transparency and just being upfront. We're all in this together and want to do the right thing. We did have Arun that just joined as well. Arun is the CEO of SolarMite. So Arun, I would love for you to take this question on what you're doing in your business to combat poor sales practices.
Sure. Sorry, it was a little late, guys. Yeah, so far everything that everyone said is focused around communication, and that is really it. I think customers are generally reasonable if they understand the process, understand what's going on, understand delays due to weather, due to material shortages. And I think that ties in probably to question one a little bit. We're trying really hard to just keep everyone in constant contact because that's setting expectations is the right way to do it. Talking about some of the poor sales tactics. A lot of the companies that we're dealing with and a lot of the sales orgs, they're used to doing their own site visits or doing drone site visits or whatever, which I know all can be pretty good. We still do every site visit. There's a tech that goes out to every house, gets on every roof, opens the panel up, takes the dead front off. Like we do probably more thorough site visit because we've found that it makes the install much more efficient and we find all those adders. And so we don't get it past what our notice to proceed internally until we've done that and sent it back to sales. If there's a panel upgrade, if we see rust in the meter, we try and capture that because it is really tough for salespeople to go back with a $3,000 adder for what a new upgrade, whatever it might be. Sure, we miss things. There are things the utility calls out at the end, but we try our best to set expectations from the beginning. On the permit poaching, we don't see a lot of it in New Jersey here. It's very rare that we see that. I don't know if that's more prevalent in other areas because New Jersey is pretty much it's a huge pain in the butt state for permitting. So I think it's harder to poach from that perspective. But I think the communication and setting expectations from the beginning are really the crucial part.
Yeah, perfect. Next question. What is one piece of advice you would give to a new company that wants to start in solar today? Steve, don't say run.
Don't.
I was going to ask about what was the choice of answers we could have there. No, the most important thing, I think it's no matter what kind of business that you're in, what industry you're in, is you really need to start off with understanding your financials, understanding cash flow, understanding how to manage the business. I know there are a lot of people and then companies who've gotten into this industry and many others I've been involved in who are experts at a certain part of the business and feel like they can go in and become the business owner or they can jump in and create a business doing it. And they're really good at what they do. But a lot of times we just don't know what we don't know. So without getting really good mentors, really having people on your team that are experts in areas that you're not, it's going to be a struggle to figure it all out and learn it. And sometimes you don't get through. So I guess my first thing, my piece of advice would be surround yourself with the best people who are experts in areas that you're not.
Oh, perfect. Hunter?
I would say if you love shoving bamboo underneath your fingernails, it's a great idea. Other than that, no, Bruce Lee's philosophy, right? Practice one kick 1,000 times, not 1,000 kicks one time. A lot of people are interested in looking good rather than actually being good. So if I were to give advice to a younger me or a mentee, I would say start small. Don't go try to raise $500,000, $1 million. Start, if you're starting a company, it should be you as the first sales rep. You're subcontracting out your installs to get going, but you should keep your 5.0 on Google. And if you can't get to 50 installs a month, which maybe will take you around a year or two, and keep that 5.0 on Google, then you shouldn't be doing it. As the solar market evolves, quality is much more important to not only survive, but thrive in this market. And I think if there's any piece of advice that I can see that other people, in my opinion, are maybe doing it wrong or misguided is they're thinking, how many states can I be in? How big can my company be? Rather than, let me be really good at solar install. Let's hyper focus on customer experience, hyper focus on reviews, and hyper focus on sign to install timelines. And once you're the best in your area, whether it be a single state or just a region, then you grow to that next sales team and that next install crew, and you grow smart, not grow fast. That would be my wisdom to pass on.
Perfect. Mark?
Yeah, I echo all of that. It's pretty straightforward. I only know the journey that I've taken, which is one sale at a time, one scope at a time, one market at a time, really one city and one utility at a time. Solar is really done at the utility level, combined with an AHJ or city. So for anyone looking to enter at least the solar installation side of the business, it is a lot of fun. It's painful. You learn a lot. It's a crazy journey. You meet a lot of cool people. You also are met with a lot of challenges that you didn't anticipate. To Hunter's point, you got to understand the sales process. If you can't originate, you're going to be reacting a lot to those that do. And so, yeah, just one scope at a time. Start with the sales process. Let someone else do, the permitting, utility install, and then take on the HOA maybe, then take on the city permit, then take on the utility application. And then before you know it, now you're like, okay, I need to figure out how to buy panels and inverters. That's when the shift really starts to happen, where you got to, that's the gut check. Once you start to develop a relationship with a financier who has a very high barrier of entry, then, well, most of them do. That's where you really want to check yourself and make sure that you've got the 5-star reviews and the systems and process to ensure that you can scale and appropriately pay people and be liable. That's my advice.
Awesome. Arun?
Similar to both or Mark, they try not to start to be completely vertically integrated. Companies that are trying to do it all, well, it's impossible. And it's what we saw in 2016, 14 to 16, everyone started dividing it. There was construction only, finance only, and typically operations or EPC was cut up into pieces. To Mark's point, I think you got to really get good at your core business before you can start adding everything in, because the moment you do, it's really difficult to stay above water. My other big thing, I think it was Steve, you mentioned that cash flow in construction is by far the biggest hurdle. Your 60, 90-day payouts, when you're paying everything up front, paying commissions, salespeople won't wait. Figuring out how to manage cash flow, which I think we're all still figuring out because it's impossible to always manage. I think that's super important. So if you're starting, have someone that has some sort of accounting background in your company, whether they're a partner, whether they're just someone that you can go to, more of a controller, because it's really easy to spend money and jump after new technologies and waste money. And kind of goes into my last thing about something we've done over the last few years is standardize your material. Don't go chasing after the panel, this one manufacturer or one inverter, because it's 5 cents lower as a temporary thing. If you standardize things, everything becomes much more efficient. And if sales companies come in and say, no, we want to do Solar Edge, and you're an Enphase shop, just say no. It's hard to say no to, especially when you're in the beginning, you're desperate, you say yes to everything, but then you find yourself using 5 different rail systems, 12 different panels. So I think standardizing can make you a lot more efficient also. And it's an easier sell to the customer, because then you're never choosing. Panels will always change, I get that, but at least the other components you can keep standardized.
Awesome. Leads into the next question, that knowing what today in the industry, if you had a magic time machine and you can go back 3 years from now and make one change in your company, what change would you make and why? Steve?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I probably really start off with embracing HVAC energy efficiency as part of our solution, as our offering. And for a couple of reasons. One is I've been in HVAC in the past, and I always felt like it was a great sister to renewables and solar. It's just becoming even more so with the electrification and electric heat pumps. But the HVAC industry has an excellent capability and reputation for customer service, being in front of the consumer, really making sure that they understand exactly what they're getting and how that relationship becomes an expert resource for all things related to energy and home comfort. I think we've missed the boat in our industry as pure solar installers in developing that long-term relationship. For too long, we've looked at these installations and installers who are doing volume as install, move on to the next one, the sales awareness, and sell, move on to the next one. We really should be developing, and I wish we had developed better long-term relationships with the consumers with annual agreements and annual checkups and lifelong relationships to help with the expansion and the servicing and the maintenance and the add-ons that consumers need.
Awesome. Hunter?
There's definitely been one thing that, like in any owners or CEOs life cycle, they've definitely had some major pain points. But to be honest with you, I think you learn the most from pain, and then you evolve and you get better. So I don't think I would change any of the growing pains throughout. I don't know. One thing I guess if I were to travel back in time, I would spend a little more time buying drinks for the finance company guys, chumming it up with them a little more. Now knowing how much that a great relationship there can really sway and move the needle, so to speak, on the success of your business. Yeah, I would invest more in the relationship equity with the finance partners, because you can be the best company in the world at everything you do, but if you don't have great finance partner relationships, then you're going to be spinning your wheels.
Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, I think similar vein as Hunter, I would have probably doubled down on my financial acumen. I think that it's such an underutilized and really just there's a large gap on the contractor side and the financial acumen of the business. What I mean by that is learning how to read, understand, and really cause change in the financial statements, knowing what lever pushes what. So being able to really break down a financial statement, what goes into those financial statements, how to make small tweaks to operations, sales that give you back a tenth or a quarter or a point. Because really the construction side of the business, they say it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And so the only way you really get grounded in data is knowing what the financials say and what's correlated to those. And in that same note, I would say with that financial acumen, I would be a demand of the capital markets to do more of a partnership with us. Let's share risk. Let's be transparent, and let's go create something that's really differential for the market, because every financier wants to differentiate. So do we. And so I probably would have spent a lot more time figuring out that joint venture structure earlier, even raise capital if needed, or done whatever I could to understand the economy of the financial market so that we could do a joint venture, bear the same burden, create transparency, and really in lockstep take on, what we needed. So yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Arun?
I would probably, we're started more as the construction side before we got into their sales, and we've more recently partnered with sales companies and brought in the financial tools for them. I would have made that switch earlier, 3 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, to start selling our own systems as full EPC instead of we were mostly a subcontractor in a coalition, but building for all the big players, and we keep getting stuck in these bankruptcies like SunPower last week. So I think that would have been a big change. And to Mark's point is understanding the financials so that we could have gotten those financial products in earlier, and understanding that what they look at, what's important on the balance sheet, and what triggers what on those financials. I think it's a learning curve for all of us that don't have the background. But yeah, 3 years ago, I would have definitely started selling a lot more internally with sales partners through the EPC model instead of just subcontracting.
All right. Now, last question. What is your company's best practices to ensure glowing customer reviews and that top tier experience? Steve?
For us, we have multiple touch points. So we have live outreach from internal team that lets the customer know what's going on with their projects, what the status is, what the next steps are, give them a chance to ask questions. We also have automated touch points that are going out as the project's moving through. So really, it comes down to the basic of communication, being upfront, letting people know if things are delayed, letting them know. At the end, after the installation, no one's happier in our experience than the day of their installation. You just got your keys to the car, right? And you're ready to turn it on. So for us, that's a major touch point, and that's the first time we asked for a review just on the installation experience. And then at the end, after PTO has been received, close out, we help out with the credits and SRECs. At that point, we'll ask for another full experience review. But it's all about reaching out and understanding and communicating with the consumer. And if we get a negative review, we reach out to them too, and we will send a third party to basically do a survey. Say, okay, what in the experience did not go well for you? What would you suggest to make it a better experience? And we bring that in and internalize it into how we operate the business.
That's awesome. Always a good opportunity to learn from all of that. Hunter?
Yeah, for us, it's really truly just hyper focusing on the data. When we look at SLAs through the project build cycle, some people will say X or Y should take 3 business days. For Sunvina, we go down to 3.1 days or 26 hours. And then getting an acceptable standard right now, just absolutely hyper focused on signed to permit submitted in less than 5 days. And right now our company is hovering at 4.8 days for signed to permit submitted, which is great. But then taking that and siloing the data into different segments to see where are your long poles in the tent? Is it within your control or outside of your control? And then just pushing the envelope to see what is possible and what is not. And when you focus on the timelines, then abracadabra, magically the customer experience is going to be fantastic because it pushes you to have amazing communication. It pushes you to have the energy consultant still engaged in the process rather than signing and forgetting about it and having delays. So yeah, I would say hyper focusing on the data and making sure we get that project signed install as quickly as possible really helps with the customer experience. And then going with on top of Steve, multiple touch points from Sunvina W2 team member, making sure that temperature checking, or we call it tasting the soup, so to speak, to make sure that the soup is still good to go and the customer is still happy on their journey, and making sure if there's any snags that we're able to handle those objections, so to speak, before they become something more severe. And then an in-person QA after the project is completely wrapped up. We'll actually send a human being to the customer's house to do an in-person quality assurance check and go through a list of questions and make sure that one, our operations team was amazing, our timelines were great, our install was great, and then obviously the energy consultant met up to their standards and didn't promise them maybe a unicorn a day of install or any shenanigans of that sort. So really caring. I think the baseline is actually caring about the customer experience. And I love that I'm seeing our industry evolve to most installers now realizing if you don't do this, you will fail. Yeah.
Perfect. Mark?
Yeah, I can echo all of that. It seems that communication is critical, right? And it is. And so ensuring that you identify the platform customers will communicate on. Many are in the text threads, right? There's so much business being transacted in text. It's incredible. So ensuring that you have those open lines of communication throughout the project, and then managing the data to Hunter's point. You track everything by utility, by city, by sales rep, by dealer, by install crew, by permit coordinator, and you let the data lead the adjustment. And then of course you do need to ask. If you don't ask for the feedback, you got to get the feedback. You got to have the feedback loop and all the critical touch points, because if you're not asking, all you're left with is what's not working. And then you get really like down on, man, there's a lot not working. But when you go ask for the positive feedback, honestly, like if you're doing your job, you're going to get 5 to 1. Like there's 5 people that are happy to 1 that isn't. And frankly, if you're doing it really well, like Sunvina, you're going to get 10, 20, 30 to 1, right? An average installer should be able to get a 5 to 1 positive experience just by showing up to work every day. Our approach is get the feedback loop in, make sure you do something about it. And then my favorite thing is just really having the tough conversations. Like there was a time where TriSmart wasn't picking up the phone. Some bug happened in our call center for a while. We couldn't figure it out. And we had all these bad reviews because TriSmart doesn't pick up their phone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So we had to go revamp our entire call center to ensure that we could do something as simple as just pick up the phone and call people back. If you pick up your phone, you're doing something right. So just keep it simple. Treat your customers like you'd want to be treated.
Yeah. Arun?
I think a lot has already been said, but besides the communication from the company side, it's the communication that the crew on site is giving the customers when they get there, introducing themselves properly. If they're not finished or they have to leave for some reason, they're missing material, not just driving away, because that's very common. And then we find out about it later in the day or the next morning. So it's we every crew that we have running out there is always, you have a main contact. Whoever that person is the one knocking on the door. It's also the one leaving, walking around the house, then cutting rail on the lawn, like all the different things that happen in construction, making sure that's all cleaned up. We're trying to institute a situation where we're having the homeowner walk around the house with the installer just to say, hey, does everything look all right? Also, it protects us from the broken gutter, the ripped out bush, things that we didn't do or we did do. But either way, having that walk through a little bit also makes them feel like they're part of the construction process and they understand what's going on. And then a walkthrough of the system if we're done. This is your disconnect, this is this and that, and so on and so forth. I think that definitely helps the customer experience at the end of it all. Some people could care less. Some people are super interested. We give them the option.
Perfect. So that's it for our questions. So now we're actually going to turn it back over to Mark Bench. And Mark is going to tell us a little bit about really all the great things that the RSA is doing for the industry. So Mark, I'll let you take it from here.
Nicole, do you want to take a couple of the questions first from the Q&A? There's just a
Sure.
couple of things, and then we could jump to Mark. I think that would be great. Wrap it up with Mark there.
Perfect. So we did have some questions around permit poaching, where someone didn't know really what permit poaching is and why do we see it as a big problem. Hunter, I know this is something that you're really passionate about. Do you want to take the lead?
Yeah, I would say I probably have a more politely firm viewpoint on this, but I'm Sicilian and I guess that's just how it is. Yeah, permit poaching, the basic assumption or the justification would be, well, if you're not providing enough value to a homeowner, then I can come with a better price and provide more value. And I don't disagree with that philosophy at all. I love that. I would love if all solar was sold extremely cheap to the homeowners so they can really, I'm a tree hugging hippie. So I would love that solar is less expensive. What I do have an issue with though is, say your average rep that has a family and 4 kids sells, say, an average rep 2 jobs a month, and that individual supports their entire family. And then you have a get rich quick scheme type of guy who goes and pulls public data of permits that are available and goes in there and says, hey, I'm going to give you a better price. Now, if they're just giving a better price, so be it. Let the best man win, right? Social Darwinism. I'm all about it. However, if you go in there and you say a bunch of bad things and you lie to the homeowner and manipulate the situation to get the homeowner to flip the deal, and then you take 50% of a family's income off their table because you don't want to go do the work yourself, that I do have a problem with. Sunvina has already successfully sued 2 companies for tortious interference. That is what permit poaching is. You know that there is a contractual agreement in place because you found permit data online. We've successfully proved that with just bad actors. And I think it's very rare now that it's happening to us. But yeah, I think once they realize that if you cautiously interfere and purposely do that, and you're just what I call a bad human being, if there's consequences to actions, people won't do it. So again, I love a competitive marketplace. I'm all about it. However, if people do it and then lie and manipulate to flip deals, I think that's just I believe in karma. I think karma will come back around. And so everyone has a different way of handling it. I tell our energy consultants, our sales partners, if you can prove that someone permit poached your deal, not just that you lost a deal, I will pay $100,000 for the attorneys to represent you and absolutely destroy the company and individual that's doing that. That's just my viewpoint on it.
And I just saw Dave Jones. I see you raised your hand on that. Did you have more that you wanted to add there?
No, I think Hunter, you perfectly answered it. Love the competition. I just think it's how you get that information and then what you do with that information that really Hunter's done a great job being a good example of. Do it honestly, you're great. If you're doing it dishonest and you're telling the customers lies, that's a whole different game. And I think that's a great call out.
And Brent, it looks like we have Simon that raised his hand. So I don't know if we can.
Simon, are you able to type the question in there in the chat or in the Q&A? he dropped his hand. We'd love to try to get to it, Simon, if you get a chance. But in the meantime, thank you. What a great session, and thanks for everyone's comments. Mark, we'd love to turn it over to you. Oh, Steve, you got your hand up.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I do. And real quick, I think it's really interesting as I sat and listened to everybody talk today. The companies in here who are talking about how we are dealing with surviving, taking care of the consumer. There was never a point raised about doing quality work. And I think it's fascinating because that's just the expectation. The companies that are on here, that's not a business practice. That's just a way of operating. What we spend our time focusing on as leaders and owners of companies is the consumer experience, navigating the industry, and best practices for surviving and thriving. So I think that speaks a lot to companies who are really well focused on delivering the best possible products and solutions, that our time's not focused on the delivery of the actual product. It's focused on how do we run better businesses.
Said.
Great point, Steve.
Mark, I've even got a slide deck if you want to talk to your points to a slide deck, unless you had something else.
Wait, I haven't seen it. Let's see it.
You've probably seen something like it. I'll flash through it quickly. Maybe you
So
can
one thing I'll correct you, it's the Residential Solar Association.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. It's good.
Oh
Yeah.
no, that's so embarrassing. I'm just
You are so embarrassed right now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Residential Solar Association, RSA. Go ahead. What's the next slide? Sweet. Like
You
this.
want it, or you want me to take it down?
Let's just flash through it. Educate, elevate, advocate. Very
There's
good.
this and this,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Let's go back to that last picture. The picture of everyone at the Utah Capitol, because that speaks to one of the many things we do. What is the RSA? The RSA is a group, a large group. We're coming up on 100 members of people, business leaders, influencers in the residential sector that have all aligned our interest in strengthening, empowering, and educating the industry. It takes something for you as a competitor to take your hat off and align yourself with even your competitors for the greater good of the industry. So you're dealing with a lot of individuals that are passionate about the future of the residential sector, so much so that they're willing to collaborate even with like their competitors. And right now that's more necessary than ever because there's policy being made, and the policymakers, legislators, they need subject matter experts that they can count on and trust to show up to meetings. So we have many residential solar association members participating in technical committees with SEIA and lobbyists to ensure that they're properly informed in what practices work to protect consumers and the industry. Otherwise, people are uneducated, unaware, uninformed. And so we spend a lot of time collaborating on how to strengthen the industry, how to help each other out. We share ideas in our networking events. Most importantly, though, we are getting educated on policy and what's happening and coming at us so that we can meet them where they are. It's extremely important for everyone to understand our industry is going to be regulated. There are standards and practices being released right now, and we need more people to associate with us to join the collaboration and ensuring that what the regulation is works for everybody, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So join us. You go to the website, it's residentialsolarassociation.org. We have a members only meeting coming up September 9th. It's Monday at RE Plus. And join and become a member, and you will be able to participate. We're having a financier panel. We've got 6 or 7 key executives from each financing company. They'll be answering some pretty important questions for the industry. And then we'll be able to network, socialize, learn from each other. And then we have some sunset pictures we'll take for you, and we'll have a good time. So that's Monday, September 9th from 7 to 9 p.m. in Anaheim. And we also have monthly membership meetings that you can join. We do panels similar to this where we educate, we advocate, and we strengthen the industry. So that's the RSA. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Our executive director is Chris Tahula. And then there's many other people you probably know on the board. So that's it for now. Thanks for the plug. I appreciate it, Nicole and Brent. We got everything in there. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take those.
Residential Solar Association. Thank you. Sorry about that. We are Pat's a member, I think. So we know better, but thank you. And Steve and Hunter and Mark and Arun, who's left, thank you so much for the time. And Nicole, great job moderating. We appreciate it. Everyone, have a great one. Take care.